Hey, it's Shane from GotRom.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to fix hip impingement in Jiu-Jitsu. Stay tuned. So the first thing that you should know is that I actually have hip impingement, or I have FAI, femoral acetabular impingement, morphology, or bone shape in my right hip. Now in 2011, I was on the verge of surgery for this problem. I was able to fix this problem with a little bit of consistent effort and mobility work, and now I want to share a few key exercises for you if you're having hip pain or hip mobility problems when you're rolling, when you're grappling. The first thing that I want to teach you is that if you do what I call targeted tissue work, which is self-massage or self-myofascial release, you'd be surprised at how much range of motion you can restore in your hip, even if you also have bad bone shapes like I do. I have cam impingement, I've got a labral tear in this hip, I've got a cyst, a subchondral cyst, but because I've worked on the muscles and freed them all up with tissue work, I've restored completely normal range of motion, and so can you. So what we're gonna do is work on the front, the inside, the outside, and the back of your hip. And the first thing I want you to do is get any kind of a roller. This is the Trigger Point quad baller, which is my favorite tool for my quads and IT band, but you can use a regular roller. If you have a barbell in a gym, you can use that. There's many rollers that are out there these days, but I like this one. So you're gonna get a roller. You're going to lay face down in a plank position and put the roller on your quad. Come up into kind of an army crawl position and slowly start steamrolling up and down on these quad muscles, looking for the areas that feel the most dense and tight. Most people only spend a couple minutes, maybe 60 seconds, 2 minutes, just kind of rolling out. It hurts, and so they just stop and move on to something else. What really made a difference for me is one day I decided to experiment with doing 30 minutes of tissue work, just this, on my right quad, 30 on my left. And when I was done, I felt like I had a brand new body and brand new legs, and I could move so much more freely. So I'm not saying that you have to do 30 minutes of rolling on your quads, but I am saying that 60 seconds is not sufficient. I would say that 2 minutes is the minimum dose. And the real answer for how long you should do it is as long as you need to make change. So something more like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes might be better. During all of these exercises, I want you to test and retest, meaning I want you to see how your hips feel in your guard position, when you move them around, where do they get stopped, where do they hurt, test both sides, compare them in all kinds of different positions. And I think you'll find that after you do these exercises, your hips feel a lot more mobile. You might already know that hip mobility is super important and that you need hip rotation to have a good guard, or if you're trying to do something like rubber guard or something where you need more hip flexibility, then you need hip rotation, internal, external, all of it. One of the major limiters of hip rotation is actually your IT band on the outside, and this is not very well known, but I've found that when I test my own hip rotation, say in this position, for example, if I feel like this just won't move that well, if I just go and roll the IT band really well, then when I retest that, I'm like, wow, that feels a lot more free. So I'm gonna show you some specific techniques to do that. What you're gonna do, just like when you're rolling your quads, you're now gonna turn on your side a little bit more and slowly steamroll the lateral seam of your leg. Now this is usually super intense for most people, so you actually have to practice your breathing and relaxing. If you tense your face and you start to hold your breath, the whole nervous system tenses up, and you're not gonna do this for long enough to make a difference. So relax the face, relax the breath, and slowly steamroll up and down. There's a couple different techniques that I like. One is just scrubbing, like you're scrubbing out a dirty dish, just scrub. So you're scrubbing up and down. That's good, but the disadvantage of this technique is you can't fully relax. So sometimes I like to drop down to my shoulder and do a slow steamroll. So I'm just taking a big breath, exhale, I feel it sink into my tissue. I slowly move up 1/2 an inch, hardly at all. Another big breath. Exhale, move 1/2 an inch. And you'll start to develop an intuition for where your body wants you to move. So right now my body is asking me to bring this knee up and turn slightly this way. Ooh, and it just became a whole lot more intense. So I'm gonna breathe again. Exhale. I feel it sink into my tissues and I scoot up 1/2 an inch. This doesn't look like much is going on, but where I'm feeling it on that trigger point, on that knot on the side of my leg, it feels pretty intense, and then I move to the next spot. A good trick is to do what I call hunt the tension. So I'm massaging an area, I'm tuned in with my body. My body's like, if you moved a little down, it would be worse. So I move a little bit down, breathe there for a couple seconds, but then eventually it's like, that's not the spot anymore. It's like it's ran away. So I have to go hunt the tension, hunt the knot. So I move a little bit more. So I highly advise you close your eyes, be mindful, tune into what you're doing, and steamroll the whole side of your IT band and all of your quads, and then retest your guard, your rolling, your hip rotation, and see if it doesn't feel a little more free. So when I was coming out of my own hip impingement in 2011, I found that the adductors were one of the main culprits that was causing my hip pain and my hip tightness. So we're gonna work on the adductors and the hamstrings using a softball. This is a 4-core fireball, but any larger diameter ball will do. So what you're gonna do is get a box or a chair to sit on. It should be a hard surface so that the ball doesn't sink in and kind of disappear when you sit on it. So a hard surface, or you can put a book and the ball on top if you need. So take your softball, put it here, get in a wide squat stance and put your adductor, the inner kind of groin muscle here. Now, a key trick is you wanna get all of your weight on top of the ball. Notice that my foot has come off the ground, which is hip internal rotation. That exposes the adductors a little bit more and makes this a little more effective. So I'm in a super wide stance, hand here, on my adductor, and then I'm just kind of moving, trying to find a really gristly, dense, gnarly spot. If you can't find it in this position, you can bounce your foot like this, and that usually helps to kind of expose some ugliness in there that's causing your pain. So wiggle around. When you find a good spot, stop, breathe, let it sink in, maybe bounce the foot a little more. You also can get down on one hand and one knee, like so, and then kind of wiggle around there. Obviously this looks kind of funny and awkward, but there's not a really easy way to massage your adductors in a very effective way. So experiment with these different positions at home or in the gym, wherever you feel comfortable, and you'll probably find some really intense, painful stuff in there. And if you spend 5-10 minutes chewing it up and then retest your hip rotation, you'll probably find, wow, that feels a whole lot better. If in the last exercise you found that your adductors, your groin muscles are particularly dense or junky or painful when you massage them, and you want to get a little bit more pinpoint on them, for me, in my own personal experience, I found that this was like the magic fix for me. When I freed up my adductors, my hips moved and felt better. So I invented a tool for myself that I eventually started sharing with people called the hip stick, which is just probably the most pinpoint way of doing trigger point massage on your adductors. So if you're looking for something more pinpoint for your adductors, check out the hip stick. The next exercise I want to talk about is your glutes and how to massage them using a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. Now again, like I said before, I recommend a lacrosse ball because it's harder. A tennis ball just kind of sinks in and disappears and doesn't really do that effective of a massage. But a lacrosse ball is great. So get a lacrosse ball, lay on your side, hips go up, turn to the side, lacrosse ball on the glutes, and then just start hunting around for, there's a good spot, stop, breathe, become dead weight, and then make little motions. I like to pull this knee up towards that one. Once I become dead weight, it sinks in, and I pull that up towards the other knee. You also can prop up your knee with a pillow, and that actually is a really, really great assist, a great help, because then I can relax even more. Right now, I have to have some level of muscle activation to keep my legs up, But if I put a pillow under here, then okay, I can become 20% more dead weight and relaxed. So prop this up here, experiment with different leg positions, massage the side of your glutes. Again, 5-10 minutes, retest your hip rotation, see how it feels. One of the reasons that people get hip impingement or they have tight hips in general is actually the hip capsule. If this is your hip bone and this is your acetabulum, your pelvis, they fit together, but sometimes the hip capsule that's immediately around it doesn't allow for a lot of motion. So even if you stretch the quads and the hamstrings and the glutes kind of farther away from the actual hip joint, if this is kind of stuck tight, it's just not going to move that well. So if you go to a good physical therapist, they might do some joint distraction and gliding techniques where they maybe put a belt around their waist, they hook it around your hip, and then they move your hip in various ways. And what this does, this belt that they use, it allows the actual hip capsule to start getting a little bit more range of motion, which then causes the whole hip in general to have more range of motion. But actually, you can do that on yourself. So what you need is any kind of a band. This is a thick kind of pull-up band or powerlifting band. And you need to hook it around an immovable post like a squat rack in a gym. And then the other end is going to go around your hip, and then I'll show you what to do. So I've hooked up this band to an immovable post, and now I'm going to put my hip through like this. So it's distracting my hip backwards. You also can do this laterally, either backwards or laterally. And then I'm going to get in a position where I'm putting all of my body weight over top of my knee, and I'm kind of hunting around until I feel like all of my weight is balanced on that knee, and I feel a deep pressure in the back of my hip socket. So I'm not kind of going down into a pigeon pose type stretch. That's a different exercise that you can do with the band, and that can help clear some impingement that you're feeling here. But first, we're going after the hip capsule mobilization or hip joint centration. And you're going to wiggle around with your leg across into external rotation. Hunt around, feel that deep pressure back here. Try not to feel an impingement in the front. If you do, you might need to twist this out, push with this hand. Breathe, sink, hunt around, wiggle. It's like I'm balanced on a stilt, on a post. All of my body weight is driving down through this knee, and there's always a deep pressure back here. So I'm hunting around, wiggling. Maybe I bring my leg into internal rotation. I can block it with my other leg. See how that feels? I like to push my hip out to the side in this case. Think of it like you're just very subtly trying to create just a little bit of motion in the hip joint itself, way up in here, without feeling any kind of a sharp, painful, pinchy impingement in the front. We're going to continue using the band because the band always helps put your hip joint in a best fit position in the socket. Sometimes the hip gets a little forward in the socket or out of position, and when it is, it doesn't move, slide, glide, rotate as well as it could. So the band helps put it in the best fit position, and then it moves better. So we're going to do a hamstring stretch and a glute stretch using the band distraction. So for the hamstring stretch, I like to kind of get in this sort of more upright position like this. If you don't have the flexibility to even get your fingers to the ground like this, you can put your hands on something, but you're just going to get in this position and then just kind of wiggle around, feel what it feels like, breathe. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Exhale, kind of forward fold like in yoga. Move backwards, move forwards. Just do all kinds of different things to see how this feels on your hamstring stretches. From there, we're going to move to a glute stretch position where this is like a classic figure four glute stretch, but now with the band distracting your hip that way, hopefully that clears some of your impingement or some of your tightness in the hips. And then you can either thread the needle, as they say, like this, and feel what this stretch feels like. I recommend you always dorsiflex your foot to protect your knee. So keep the toes cocked up towards the knee, and then just kind of wiggle around, explore, experiment. I like to do it like this. Breathe and relax. You can slide this across a little bit more. See what that feels like. Anything is fair game, but you're just trying to feel kind of a deep glute stretch on the far side. And the band distraction is going to help, like I said, clear some of that impingement. The next exercise that we're going to do is the band distracted goalie stretch for your adductor muscles, your groin muscles. So you're going to get in this position. The band is pulling you back. Chest is lifted. Hips sink back into this hip crease. Sometimes people get an impingement feeling here, but the band helps to take that away. So you're here, and then you can either slowly drop your chest forward or bring it out this direction, maybe even reach for your foot, whatever feels kind of good for you. And then from here, I do a couple things. I like to kind of squeeze the ground with my leg, so I'm kind of pulling my leg into the ground as I hold my breath, squeeze, and then I release and sink a little deeper into the stretch. Or I flex and release my quads, so I'm tensing, releasing, and I feel this side relax. Every time I tense and release, I feel myself sink deeper into the stretch here. So wiggle around, experiment. Maybe you turn your toes up to the sky just a little bit, whatever feels good to you. But explore that for a little while. You've already massaged all of the muscles. You've chewed them up. You've used the band to put your hip in a best fit position. And I think that when you then retest your hip in all of the ranges that you need in jiu-jitsu, probably find that you have less hip impingement and more hip mobility. The last thing that I want to say is that fixing hip impingement is not just a quick fix. It usually takes a combination of tissue work, massage, stretching, and strengthening. So there's some things that you need to do to activate certain muscles, to strengthen them, and the combination of soft, supple muscles who have adequate range of motion from stretching and are smart muscles, meaning they know how to fire, they know how to contract, they know how to pull you deeper into ranges of motion using your own muscular control is also really important. So because it's a complex issue, we have a whole program about it. It's thefaifix.com. You can check it out. And if you need any support, email me and I'm happy to help.